Hi, my name's Lindsay and I'm going to show you how to make these simple but beautiful crepe paper tulips. This tutorial is suitable for beginners and children. All you need to be able to do is to cut and glue reasonably accurately and you'll be good. Everything you need is readily available online or in craft shops, but costs add up, so there's also a kit available to make 5 tulips from black and torty with everything you need except scissors and glue for $7.99. You'll also get the templates and step-by-step written instructions. Now, there's lots of tutorials available online for more complicated versions, but this one's really easy and most people could probably give it a go, and you can definitely do this with kids too. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using what you can see in front of you. So if you want to take a little screenshot, then you've got your shopping list, so to speak. So the first thing is, of course, the crepe paper. Now, this is stretchy crepe paper. It's either called heavy crepe paper or Italian crepe paper. It's not the same as the crepe paper that you get from sort of kids supply stores. So this is sort of the crepe paper that you might be used to. It's very thin and as you can see it doesn't stretch, whereas this crepe paper is much thicker and it has a great stretch to it, which we'll come to later. That's really important though for shaping the petals. Now, if you look online, you can find loads of suppliers, but you need to make sure that you're getting this one and not the thin one, because the thin one will fall apart the minute you start using glue with it. Okay, as well as the crepe paper, you're going to need some paper straws. Please make sure they're paper and not plastic. Some pipe cleaners, yellow, or you can paint them if you can't get yellow ones. You need some green crepe paper for the leaf. Now, floral tape's really useful, but not essential. So if you've got it, great. If you haven't, don't worry about it. Scissors and glue. Now, my preferred option is tacky glue. It doesn't matter what brand you have. This one's turbo tacky glue, which means it sets a little bit quicker, but it's different to normal PVA. If you use normal PVA, it just doesn't set quickly enough and you'll find that the petals start to slide everywhere. This has got an extra ingredient, which means you can sort of target where you put the glue with much more precision. Okay, so I'm going to be using that one, but you can also use all-purpose glue. It's really cheap. It's available all sorts of places for about £1 for a tube like this. The only problem is I wouldn't really recommend using it with kids because it does smell and it is a little bit toxic, to put it bluntly. But it does work really well. So up to you, use in a ventilated space and follow the manufacturer's instructions. First thing you need to do is to take your strip of crepe paper. Now, this is about 30 centimetres long by 7 centimetres. If you fold it in half and then into thirds, you'll find you get the right size for the petals. So what I'm going to do is just fold it like that to make sure the petals are roughly the same size. You have to be that precise. And then I'm going to cut along the folds. So I should, if I've done it right, end up with 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I knew I'd missed one. Oh no, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we don't need to worry too much about the size at the moment. And as you can see, it's nice and stretchy. So I've got a choice here. As you can see, I've got the white at the top edge. I'm just going to trim that bit off because it's got folded. Because you do have an option. You can have it that way up and you can have that effect on your petals if you like. Now, you're probably asking, how have I achieved this ombre effect on the petals? Well, actually, it's really easy. All you do is you take your roll of crepe paper and you take some kind of plastic container and you dip it. Now, what you dip it in is up to you. You can just dip it in water. With some crepe paper, the colour is water soluble, so it just drains out. With other crepe papers, you can use lemon juice. That takes a little bit longer, but if you leave it overnight, you get some nice effects. The crepe paper absorbs it up here, and as you see, the colour changes. Or you can use bleach. This one was done using bleach, and you can see that this yellow colour has appeared out of the original dye of the red paper. Now, obviously, you might not want to use bleach, in which case, certainly wouldn't use it with kids. You can use lemon juice, that's much, much safer. Not as strong an acid though, so it's not going to have quite those effects. Right then, so once we've got our 6 pieces, I suggest you don't cut all 6 at the same time. That's because you just get lots of jagged edges, so either 2s or 3s is fine. So you can see we've got a 7x5cm rectangle. Just going to put a template on it, or you can do it freehand. It's absolutely fine. I normally do it freehand, and we're just going to cut round. Now, the pack is available from Black and Torty. If you go to my Instagram, you can follow it there, or you can find me on Facebook or on my Folksy site. Okay, so you've got these petals like that. That's one lot. And then make sure you've got it the right way up so that the egg shape is sort of upside down, if you like. Otherwise, you're going to get differently shaped petals. Now, you will find tutorials where you can wire the petals, and you get much more freedom to shape them when you do that. But it can also go wrong. And this is a tutorial for simple tulips, and they are exactly how I make the ones that I showed you at the start. Okay, so once we've got our egg-shaped petals, what you do is you just shape them a little bit. And you don't have to shape them completely at this point, because you'll find that when you glue them to the flower stem, they're going to kind of move around anyway. But we make this kind of stretchy shape here. As you can see, it's a little cup shape at the bottom. You can actually do a couple at a time, so I'm just going to do that. Just stretch them, got the general idea, keep them all the same way up, and just stretch it like that, and you get that kind of tulip shape starting to appear. Right, next step is going to be the stamen. Now, these are pipe cleaners which are cut in half. They start off about 30 centimetres, so they're now about 15. And what I'm going to do is fold it in half. Right, and then I'm going to make a little cross, probably about a centimetre, centimetre and a half, stems like that. Okay, right, and then I've got this long bit which I'm just going to bend down. Then I'm just going to bend up these to create the centre. Right, you're going to find that this bit is just going to pop inside the straw. Right, just check it fits and you like the look of it. And then when you're ready, just take your glue. The other thing I like about this glue is it has a little stand. Pop a bit of glue around the top of the stamen, like that, and just slide it in. Now the tacky glue does dry clear, so you don't need to worry too much about the bit that's stuck around the top. But there you go, there's your stamen, as you can see. There you go. Now again, you can spend absolutely ages getting very realistic stamens sorted, but you don't actually see them inside the tulip shape. So if you're making this with kids, if you're after the kind of effect of the paper and the overall impression rather than botanical realism, then this is how you go about it. Okay, so what we're going to do next is just stick our petals onto our stamen. Now, what I would do is, I'm just going to clear a space here, we don't need that anymore. Going to spread out the petals. Now I tend to, in order to avoid getting glue everywhere, set out my petals. Now I'm looking at them and I'm thinking the ones with the most obvious effect need to go on the outside. So I'm going to pop that one down there, and I put these 3 on the inside, these 3 on the outside. So all you need to do is to put some glue, not too much because you just want it to stick, you don't want it to slide around, on the bottom of the petals. Now it's not going to dry straight away, so you've got plenty of time to work with it. Put the glue back. So we're going to start sticking the petals round about here, because that gives the kind of stamen effect in the middle of the tulip. If you have a look at this one, you can see it's not quite at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to place it at equal spacing around the stamen. So just going to overlap like that, make sure that you've got a good contact with the straw. And you can see the tacky glue isn't going everywhere. If you're using PVA, it's probably going to start sliding, and you might find that you've got to stick it a petal at a time. Right, now don't worry about the tulip shape at this point, because we will fiddle around with that in a bit, okay? Now, ideally, you want to leave that to dry. If you're making several at the same time, not a problem. Do this step first and then do the next layer of petals. But obviously I'm showing you how to do it. So I'm going to put the next layer on. So you can see you've got the gap between the two petals, and this one is just going to go over the gap. This one over the next gap. And then you've got your final petal that goes round like that. Now, what you want to do is just make sure it's kind of neat round the bottom and it's got lots of contact. Don't worry if the petals stick out a bit at this point. Okay. Now, ideally, you would let that dry at that point. Okay. Now, what you can do, and this is completely optional, is you can use floral tape around this part of the tulip. You can see on this one that's finished that I've done that. That just neatens it off. But if you've stuck it down well, you probably don't need to do that. Okay, so let's put that to one side. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take the leaf template. Now, you can see it's 15 by 2 centimetres. And I'm just going to, you can either use a template or you can cut a freehand leaf shape. And you might be looking at it and thinking that doesn't look like a tulip leaf. Well, that's the magic of crepe paper. That's why crepe paper is so good for doing flowers, because when you stretch it, you suddenly get that nice broad tulip leaf. Now, I wouldn't stretch it at the bottom because that's where you're going to want to glue it. So again, with the tacky glue, I'm going to make sure that I've got a decent amount. I'm just going to spread it down with my finger. And I'm going to put it on at just a slight angle. Just gives it a nicer finish. So press it down well. If it comes unglued a little bit, just check it in 2 minutes, push it down, and you'll be sorted. Okay, so final thing you need to do with your tulip is just to give the petals a little bit more shape. And the easiest way to do this, you don't have to be that gentle, it's quite surprising how strong the crepe paper is you shape the bottom of each of the petals. Don't worry about the top, just stretch the bottom and it creates that kind of cup shape that you're looking for. You don't want to overstretch it because it will just start looking tissuey and you won't be able to shape it. So that's it, that's just the bottom of each of the petals, and then just stretch it back up and you've got that finished tulip shape. Now, what you can also do at that point is, if you find you've got any rough edges or bits that you think, well, that bit's a bit higher than the others because of how you stuck it, you can just trim little bits off with the scissors. But just like cutting hair, you can always take bits off, but you can't stick it back on afterwards. So just be careful about how you go about doing that. Right, and there is your finished tulip. Like I said, if you want to use the floral tape, it doesn't cost very much. It's not included in the pack off the website though. You just take a little bit of floral tape and you've got a sticky side, shiny side, and it gets sticky when you stretch it. So if you wrap it around, it won't stick, but if you stretch it as you wrap it, it will just create a nice, even, smooth finish. And then if you want to, you can just put a little bit of glue on the end and that will stop it from unravelling. Although if it does unravelling, you just warm up your hands and stick it back on. Right, final bit of shaping. You can bend the leaf whichever way you want. It's quite nice when you've got a bunch to bend them all in different ways. So you'll see that when you put them together, you get a really lovely display.